You're here because you know something, that there's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there.
Don't worry, don't be afraid, ever. This is just
vibration. I'm picking up vibration. I'm picking up vibration. I'm picking up vibration.
Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night. Blinded by the light, wrapped up like a douche, another runner in the night. Blinded by the light.
Trying to remember where it all began. She's got herself a little piece of heaven, waiting for the time when there shall be more. And I feel like I just got home, and I feel like I just got home, and I feel. She's got herself a little piece of heaven, waiting for the time when there shall be more.
So welcome back to Good Vibrations. We're going to have a deep one today, getting into some deep subject matter, and these are always good to do. I'm chatting to Wayne Bush over in Texas, US. Hey, Wayne.
Hey, Mark. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Great to have you on. No relation to George H.W., I'm sure?
Absolutely not.
Good to hear. So you run the website trickedbythelight.com, which people will no doubt want to go to as a reference point for what they're going to hear about today. And we're here to talk about some of the content that you've got on that site. Before we get into the specifics of it, though, would you just like to set the scene a little bit and what inspired you to start this site and what inspired you to start writing about the sort of esoteric subjects that you cover?
Okay, sure. I'm originally from Ohio in the United States, of course. I moved to Austin and went to University of Texas, and I've been a computer programmer at the state of Texas for about 25 years now. I was raised as a casual Catholic, and then I became a Christian while I was at the University of Texas. And after about 10 years, I started looking into the New Age movement and became more conspiracy-minded when I discovered Art Bell, David Icke, Jordan Maxwell, John Lear, and others. And after I read and watched everything I could get my hands on, I started doing my own original research into the symbology and the language and music and movies. I analyzed the data, and then I put up my Trick by the Light website originally in 2002. The website's basically a response to the popular notion that there's a tunnel that one goes through when one dies to be with a loving light. It's a familiar meme noun. It's being used for a source of jokes in movies. I believe it's a trick in that our souls are lured to the light by alien beings on the moon and used as a source of energy for the sun. So we get mooned and we are SOL, shit out of luck. The soul has died or been bleached and is released and sent to Earth, where it is recycled and reincarnated, or reincarcerated, as I like to call it, where they feed off the negative emotions generated from our stressful lives as slaves. We're imprisoned by our body cells and our chemical compounds. We're kept here not only by gravity, but we're also spellbound by the spelling of words which pronounce a life sentence with prison terms. We're being tricked for it's a game, the game of life for the human race. We're mostly a composite of our thoughts, emotions, feelings, and our physical composition. So we can be influenced or controlled by these. Our thoughts are largely based on what we were taught growing up or our conditioning, what we see and hear. That is words that comprise our language and images or symbols that we see around us and we're constantly inundated with. I think art imitates life, and life in turn reflects the bigger true picture and may give us insight into why we are truly here and where we came from. The media influences our conscious and subconscious minds, so that would include music, television, movies. Also, religion and politics can use our emotions against us and flag waving and justifying the cause for holy wars and such. So the devil's in the details, as they say. So I'm going to try to look at each of these areas. And words are like breadcrumbs that can provide a trail that we can use as clues to trace or track down our history. So when I first started researching, I delved into the language. So I looked up God in the dictionary, and I noticed that I tried to break things down. So I saw the G at the front, and I thought of the Freemason symbol, and then I saw Ode, O-D at the end, and I'd heard of that, the Odilic or Odic force, and how the Norse god Odin or Woden was the head of their pantheon, and that's where we get the word for Wednesday or Woden's Day. So the dictionary said Ode was a mysterious force of the universe or God. My Encyclopedia of Witchcraft says Ode and Obe are astral energy, and on this plane, spiral is two snakes of energy that spiral up our spine, like on the Caduceus symbol. So the G is a Freemasonic symbol, which I believe is the sun, soul, which is a G-class star, and the musical note G in the Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti system. So, to the Egyptians, the sun was Re or Ra, so it's raw matter, raw material, and you get a raw deal. It's the ether or, the wind through the solar wind, the soul, S-O-L, becomes soul, S-O-U-L, and the sun, S-U-N, becomes a sun, S-O-N, or our self becomes imprisoned by body cells and chemical compounds. The plasma from the sun becomes plasma in the blood or cytoplasm in the cells. The G, gamma, which is another reason for the G, gamma rays from the sun, becomes a gamete or your ego or ego. And the or from Ra becomes your or Ra. So life on Earth comes from the energy of the sun, energy. Solar flares cause the solar wind, which blows electromagnetic wave particles such as photons and gamma rays. So the sun blow odd, and it becomes our blood. And the light, photons, and energy from the sun is responsible for the growth of our odd, or food. So I know one of the things you mentioned you wanted to cover was the area of cymatics, and that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there's a lot of information there that people can go away and muse on. But we did do a volume of Good Vibrations a while back earlier this year with a lady called Laurel Erica, and it was on the whole subject of word magic and the idea that the English language has been deliberately manipulated to get vast numbers of humans throughout the world uttering particular sounds as part of their everyday communication. And it's no accident that the British Empire saw to it that English was the language that was exported all around the world and was spoken by such vast numbers of people every day without really thinking about the effect that uttering these sounds might be having on reality. And she was, she was making the point that words are spells. They cast spells. It's a form of sound magic, and you've got various sort of incantations and mantras that people speak every day without really thinking about it.
And what's a mantra? It's a mantra. So, Hans Jenny studied how frequency and oscillation affects the very structure of matter. And cymatics comes from the Greek kuma, meaning wave. So all this energy travels in waves, and he studied how the vibrational energy of sound waves, such as the human voice or music, create an interference that forms geometric patterns on vibrating membrane like a steel plate with media such as sand. He found increasing the frequency made more complex forms like the mandalas and stuff that we were mentioning, and snowflakes like sacred geometry patterns. So like listeners may be familiar with blowing a smoke ring by making the lips into a shape of an O. It's the same idea. And crystals in water are alive and can store memory and be affected by positive or negative thoughts. And most of our body is water, and we have plasma in the blood. So you can look at ritual, and everything done during ritual is a symbol of an energy that exists on the astral plane. To bring the energy through, the magician sets up a circuit of communication so that the power can flow. To further aid in the direction and control of power, the magician relies upon certain magical tools to help his unconscious mind. The dagger, sword, wand, copper chalice, incense and burner, lamps and candles. And you can see entertainers pointing at you or flicking their hands. But two types of ritual magic are evocation and invocation. And evocation is used in ceremonial magic and the commanding of certain forces and entities by names of powers and sigils. I don't know how you say it. These are done in a mixture of Greek, Hebrew, and unknown languages. And invocation invites higher spirits and the gods. So you can recognize letters in the English alphabet have origins in the Germanic runes, which were used to cast spells. The sound or phonetic value of the rune is its vibratory quality in the air, in space. And each rune has a certain sound to it to be chanted or sung. And it's the magical creative quality that is inherent in speech. So that's how you ruin a language, is with rune magic. And the runes can be used to affect the world outside based on the archetypes they represent. Then you have like the magic books in Europe that were known as the grimoires, which came from the French word for grammar. And you've got Goetia's spell books and the Book of the Dead called the Necromonicon. And these, they have little sigils, that's supposed to represent the different gods or demons, and they can be called down through the use of angles. So,
and isn't it interesting on the subject of double meanings and wordplay and such that at the end of Christian prayers, you're always told to say the word Amen, which is actually invoking Amun-Ra, an Egyptian sun deity. And you've got Christians,
goat-headed, ram-headed.
Christians all around the world finishing every prayer with Amen and not really thinking about why it's there.
I'm going to mention that later with even the Lord's Prayer, and that's how they ended with Amen. But so we can get into language or the spelling, and so the control of the mind is largely achieved through our communication of thoughts and language. We're imprisoned by our body cells and chemical compounds, and we languish in our language. Languid means weak and lacking spirit or void of animation or lifeless. And we spell words and pronounce a sentence, a life sentence with a period or term like a jail term or a prison sentence in a pen. And the first thing you learn when you go to school is how to spell. The word sisters in Greek mythology were fates or witches who controlled the fates of man. And in our language, we use curse words and cursive writing. A rite isn't a ritual or magical rite. We cuss and discuss. The words have meaning and are mean things, especially cross words. They can be used to make a point, and we use a converse to converse in order to keep us off course in our discourse because a phrase. We use catchwords. The story is a spiel or a spell. So words are spelled to create a sentence of terms. And books contain chapters which are secret societies or religious orders, like the Knights Templar. A chapter contains many pages. A page is an understudy and in service to the king and queen, as in pages and squires. A knight who's well versed in magic and more or less a soldier or trained assassin. To page someone is to summons them. Pages are bound together and summon demons. After all, a page does contain many sentences. A jail sentence is served in a prison ward, and indeed a sentence is created by words that are spelled out using letters. A letter is someone who allows something to happen or does something for someone else, like a blood letter. The word book as a verb means to arrest or detain. Bookum dano. In fact, the Latin word for book is libere, which is where we get our word library and also the word liberty. You can book or place a bet on a game or race with your bookie, and there is a bet being placed on a race, and it's the human race, and the game is the game of life. It's the main bet or alphabet. An example of spell casting through language is when someone sneezes, you say bless you, which can also be heard by the subconscious mind as be less you. Wouldn't it be better to say be more you? We greet each other with hello, which is hell, and the suffix o, which looks like a hole or a planet, and is used to associate something to someone else, like the word daddy-o. Another is in the Prisoner TV show. They would say be seeing you, as they held up their hand and directed it towards you in a salute. And the C looks like a crescent moon. Paul McCartney even had a song called Sea Moon. We have homophones where two words have the same sound but different meanings, and that allows for lots of room for deception. Mixed messages speaking to the subconscious mind, which scrambles to make sense of a sentence using context, with double meanings and double speak. Think about the words know, K-N-O-W, and know, N-O. Knowledge is considered a very positive word, yet it's linked phonetically with the most negative word in our language. So when you say, I know this to be true, are you partially negating its reality? Also, you have profit and pray and pray. Another way is that the subconscious mind can make sense of anagrams. I have a statement on the website where the letters of the words have been rearranged, yet you can still easily read it without problem. And it says, according to research at Cambridge University, it doesn't matter in what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be at the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. This means your subconscious mind should also relate multiple meanings to words when they're anagrams. So it shouldn't be any problem to associate the word live with evil, for example. And how many names for government entities start with a negative prefix? The word nation is nay and shun. The UN, United Nations, NATO, Nazi Party, NASA, NORAD, UNESCO, NASCAR, NATAS. I'm sure you can come up with others. Prefixes and suffixes completely change the meaning of words. There's many negative prefixes such as dis and un and con, also ones that mean the sun or moon, like re or mon. And you have suffixes such as s, which looks like a snake, and makes something plural. The suffix al, can make something an adjective to describe a thing. And you have other suffixes like tick and or and ion and shun. Ing suffix, which is a rune called ing or ing, takes a verb and makes an action into an object or thing. And now just by adding ing or ng. You have all these con words. Khans or Khonsu was an Egyptian moon god. It's all a con. It's in the language, the lexicon. It's all a con game by controlling, conniving, conceited con men, convicts in a connected, conspicuous conspiracy without consulting us, but with our conscious consent and constant consequences. I've got a bunch of other con words, but you get the idea.
Yeah, get the idea.
Yeah, and you might say, a student might say, I took econ at UConn. My professor looked like Acon. He's my icon. And so, yeah, they are cons. They're basically admitting it. They say icon, right? And then they put their hands around their eye with that symbol, and it's an icon. So most of our communication is subconscious and is achieved through the use of symbols or a symbol, logos and ads. They affect our subconscious, and you see the sun and moon, eclipses, and stars are all over the place in these logos, and then the star is a pinnacle in witchcraft. In our identity, you have an id entity or the it entity, Stephen King's it, clown, or monster. And we have phrases like make it so mote it be. The Beatles chant let it be over and over. The movie It's Alive, and children play the game Tag Your It. And you have other products like sun-kissed, star-kissed, gold-kissed. A kissed is a casket. And you have G-Star, Ra, G-Shock, and you have a couple interesting logos or ads associated with the moon, especially the DreamWorks Pictures logo, where a boy's sitting on the moon with a fishing pole and lure cast into the waters below, presumably the Earth. Then you have the Miller High Life siren symbolism, where it has these oar paddles in an X shape with a witch with a pointed hat sitting on a crescent moon with stars behind her, and she's holding up a golden glass of beer, like Columbia on the logo. And the sign reads, "Fishing, reel in the high life." Continuing on with the moon, you have the Death Star from Star Wars that was disguised as a moon. In the movie The Ring, where it says before you die, you see the ring, and the image is a picture of a solar eclipse. So if you look at the moon, it's during a total eclipse, it's an uncanny coincidence that the moon's diameter is about 400 times smaller than the sun's, yet it's 400 times closer to the Earth, so that just perfectly blocks out the sun during the solar eclipse.
Just coincidence, nothing to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing to see here. Then you have the backside of the moon. It's another coincidence that the moon just happens to rotate just slow enough that the same side always faces Earth. So I wanted to look at those prefixes, mon, which is moon or man, because you say, hey, mon, and the monad is a god or deity for which many cultures was the moon. Mono equals one, so you have monopoly, and Monday was the moon's day. Month is the time it takes the moon to renew. You have money, which is associated with the moon, and monetary. Monarchy, yes, exactly.
There's a bit of Archon in there as well somewhere.
Yeah, there is. And then you have a monster, which is a moon star. The stir comes from the Greek aster, which means a star, and that's why an asterisk looks like a star. So you have monumental and ceremony and sermon, and you pay alimony, alimony, and a demon is from the moon. Then you have the suffix al or al, and is a moon god. You have el, al, and il are definite articles in different language and mean the. So like in English, the is you have theology, which is the study of God. So the is God. It's where you get theo, and usually connected to the name of God. So El or Ella is the Hebrew God. Allah literally means the God or God Al. Allah is the moon god of Islam. So you have alchemy on an altar to alter the astral field with magical spell. Alma is soul in Spanish, and you have an alkaline battery that stores energy. And you have alluring and capital when you pay alms. So you have this et al, like when you say and others, you say et al., et al., etc. And it's the et-al or alen. You have other words like metal and mental and cerebral and spinal, and I could go through a bunch of them, but I won't bore you with it.
There's so much there that people just don't think about. We use this language every day, and we don't think about the origins of it. And you've just reeled off so many examples there, and I'm sure there are many more that people can find from your site and many others. But I did just want to pick up on the Prisoner TV show, which you mentioned back there, because I remember hearing Michael Tsarian doing an analysis of the symbology behind The Prisoner a while back. And he was giving a view as to what the plotline of The Prisoner might really be all about, because it's a very enigmatic and iconic show. And he was of the view that The Prisoner is an allegory for us here in this apparent physical reality and this life that we find ourselves born into. And he was saying that, you have this guy, the Patrick McGowan character, who is at the start, at the opening credits, he's some sort of government agent, and he's resigning from his job. And the powers that be are trying to find out why he resigned.
Information.
Yes, exactly. He highlights the fact that when you hear the word information, it's split. And what you're actually hearing is in formation.
Forming inside of you. They want to inform inside of you.
Yeah, well, his idea is you see the character passing out after he's gassed, and then he wakes up in the village, this strange alien sort of territory that he doesn't know about, and he has to try to figure out why he's there. And the idea is that it's an allegory for us as spirit souls when we make the choice in a higher state of consciousness to come into this reality and learn these life lessons and go through these experiences. And we're trying to understand why we came here. And I think that's a very interesting analysis. And
it is. I see it a little more nefarious than that, because there was this thing called the rover on The Prisoner that would come down from this high tower.
Yeah,
and there was this green dome, and they had this lunar room where one side of the screen was the constellations and the other side showed Earth. And, so they were viewing the prisoner from the moon, from this green dome. And then this rover white balloon thing would come down and chase down a man if he tried to escape, and he would suffocate him, right? So you couldn't leave. So there was a lot of stuff. And I'll get to some of that actually a little bit later when I get into the movies parts.
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say, this very idea that life is kind of a game, and this is a place that we come to learn lessons and have experiences and then take that back to source when it's all over, when we exit this reality, kind of leads us on to the main talking point of your site. And, the phrase that jumped out at me when I first came across your site was, how souls are programmed to go to the moon/sun at death to be recycled as energy. And then the subtext reads, how to win the game of life and escape the prison planet Earth, which is a matrix illusion that we dream. Now, that is a phrase that kind of slaps you about the face and gets the attention.
Well, it doesn't read really well. And the reason I put it up there, and it's in large, bold, header one text, is because the search engines, they look for certain search terms. And if you want to bring people to your site, you have to use a bunch of these search terms. So that's why I put a lot of that up there. But
you want to talk us through that whole concept then? Because another of our previous guests, Sonia Barrett, back last year I think it was talking about the idea that this apparent physical reality, which is not physical at all, it's holographic, is a game. Life is basically a game, and we make certain decisions before we come here in terms of the sort of experiences we're going to have. That there's an element of it whereby it's a blank canvas and we create our own reality as we go. But basically, the type of life and who we're going to be is something that we predetermine before we get here. That was a suggestion. And I wonder if that ties into your theory. And can you just take us through your line of thinking on all this?
Sure. One of the best-selling games of all time, and I don't know what games you all have over in the UK, but here for sure it's the Game of Life. And so life's just a game, and games are fun and for our amusement. I mean, I think if there is a deeper reality, like another dimension, that it's probably a lot like this. I mean, why do we love entertainment and games so much? You know, it's probably the intuitive people tap into that, and it's, maybe we are just a game for them or a movie for them to watch. But it's a virtual reality game. I mean, if you look at the games that we play, the video games, they're becoming more and more real-like, and pretty soon you won't be able to distinguish a game from watching a football game on a television set in front of your face. And, so you have these reality TV shows, and it's a play or drama for the world's a stage and we're merely players. And you have these Game Boys, or you have an iPod and Wii. So it's like, we are the players playing a game from a game pod and an electromagnetic field or gridiron. And so games are a lot of times played on board games. So maybe these are just board games because in this other dimension we're bored and we need some drama to, something to do, a challenge. So, you have card games with tricks, where you take tricks. And I'm going to get into the trickster god and some of that. But games are where you roll a die over and over again to symbolize dying and reincarnation. And you have a race on a track that goes round and round, or a sports game. And so you have games, some of these board games like chess are played on 64 check squares, which just happens to match our 64 codons in our DNA. So let me go to the section on the trickster god, I guess, since it deals with games. And so you have have you ever heard of the trickster god, where you have Loki was a trickster god, and Kokopelli was a trickster god with one of the Native American tribes that had a flute. And so he's known by different names to different cultures. You have Inky, who was known as Ea. In the sport, EA is is a company that makes sports games, and its slogan is "It's in the game." So you have Thoth and Set and Demiurge, and Lucifer is equated with Satan. You have Trick or Treat on Halloween from the Celtic and Druid practices, and then you have the old Celtic tradition of April Fool's Day. But one of the big ones is Pan, and the London Games of 2012, they talked about Pan a lot. He was a Greek pagan nature god of the woods who played the pan pipes or the flute, and Pan means all, and it's where we get the words panic and pandemonium and the frying pan. So like Lucifer, he was demonized and he was equated with the devil, but he's shown in many stories and movies such as Disney's Peter Pan, who was another fun-loving Sylvan who had pan pipes. You have Peter Piper, who picked a peck of pickled peppers, and a pepper is of the Piper genus. You have the Pied Piper, who tricked the townspeople and led all the children into a giant rock or mountain. Is where we get the phrase "pay the piper." Pink Floyd has a Piper at the Gates of Dawn song. "Stairway to Heaven" by Led Zeppelin starts out with the flute and says, "The piper's calling you to join him. The tune will come to you at last. We're all are one, and one is all. To be a rock and not to roll." The Beatles, Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band. Well, Sgt. Pepper taught the band to play, and they say, "You're such a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us." And then you have Dr. Pepper, the drink, where it says their jingle was, "I'm a pepper, you're a pepper, wouldn't you like to be a pepper too?" You have the Pepsi drink, where the slogan was "Join the Pepsi generation." So you look at the lyrics by Van Morrison of a song called "Pay the Piper," and it's pretty obvious the piper is the devil. You have the trickster Willy Wonka, who was the wizard or magician, and he had a flute, and he had a chocolate factory, and all the kids or bad eggs would disappear or die through the pipes in his factory. And so you have this concept of a green man, someone who's green is naive, and green's the color of ectoplasm. You have the man in the moon, and the moon is made of green cheese. Chi is our energy source, right? And monstrous blood's usually green, from feeding on the souls of men. So when you have this green energy near the poles, it can be seen as lights. And when it's sent to the sun, I say during an eclipse where the energy gets clipped, it's the Green Mile from the movie, which was the hallway in which the prisoner walked between the prison cell, the holding tank, and the electric chair. So, you have a trick star associated with Lucifer, the devil, and he's the piper, which lures pips through his pipe, which is the tunnel. In games, these card games and dominoes and whatnot, the pip is it's the dot on your playing card or on your domino, and you look at pip in the dictionary and it has all these different definitions. One's a seed or energy, and so it represents man. So he must reach the other side of the board. He must pip his way through the shell to be born, like a chick pips is like peck. That's why Peter Piper pecked. Peck. He's picking or pecking, and so the sperm gamete breaks through the ovum gamete egg, and so in backgammon, it can be referred to as a game piece. In a dictionary, a pip is a short, high-pitched sound, like a short, high-pitched sound made by a bird. And so you have this reference to peep being people, like, hey, all these peeps, all my peeps. And so the pip is a pipe also. And so a piper pipes the pips or lures the fool with his pipe. And so you have this tunnel, of light that the people claim during the near-death experiences. And so I think there's a connection there because a pipe's a cylindrical tube or tunnel. And it's associated with music because a flute's a cylindrical hollow pipe.
Well, you do hear this time and time again from people that have had near-death experiences and, other worldly experiences that are able to come back into their bodies and report what they've experienced. And as you say, time and time again, it's going down this tunnel towards this amazingly, blindingly bright light. Yeah. And it's always taken to be a very positive experience and a very inspiring suggestion as to what happens to us after death. But your view is that it might not be all that benevolent and all that positive after all.
Well, when I first discovered it, I was fascinated by it. I had all the books, the Edie and then Life After Life and all those. And in the beginning, I thought that was the answer, But my views changed. 1990, this is almost a full decade before the release of the Matrix movie. A CIA operative under the pseudonym Val Valerian in a book named Matrix 2 said, quote, "Fourth density grays, the ones who are primarily dealing with Whitley Strieber, are the ones who possess the technical equipment to draw energy from the human bioplasmic field. They also have the ability to extract memories and experiences from the human being. It is they who await in the light when the human being dies. The human being is then recycled into another body, and the process begins all over again. Fourth density grays are, in effect, sensation junkies. To experience human emotions is the closest they themselves ever come to the idea of feeling." He later writes, "These entities have been abducting humans for many centuries. These entities view Earth as a big farm, and they have been essentially raising and harvesting humans." In Matrix 5, he writes, "They want to recycle low to lower mid-level spirits into another breeding productive incarnation, hence the light and tunnel at death trap. Scanning someone they wish to recycle as they near death, the aliens discover who the person was close to has died. They project the person's image in the white light tunnel, and the image waves you in deeper. If you choose to follow, you can be trapped and sent to another incarnation of their choice." This shows the Empire does have an understanding of the spirit, but it attempts to short this out. The light and tunnel trap is a relatively new device, but one that will fail, and they now know this. Go into the light, say those who have had near-death experiences. They are the salespersons chosen to advertise this alien venture. Never enter that light. Go up, left, back, right, or anywhere but there. The mass media exposure of the light and tunnel trap seen in the film Ghost, where the hero willingly enters the glittering trap, is to try to never get people to buy the destination, or to get people to try to buy the destination, end quote. So, you have similar to Ghost was the movie Poltergeist. It's like, mommy's waiting for you in the light. Don't even look at the light. Tell her to stay away from the light. And I'm going to touch on that later with, there's a Star Trek episode called Coda where this alien being tries to lure the captain into this matrix of light, But in the Tibetan, I'm going to talk about the light a little bit. It says in the Tibetan Book of the Dead, it's an instruction manual on how to navigate planes of the afterlife. It reads, quote, "Be not fond of the dull smoke-colored light from hell. Remember the clear light, the pure, clear white light from which everything in the universe comes, to which everything in the universe returns. The original nature of your mind, the natural state of the universe unmanifest. Let go into the clear light. Trust it. Merge with it. It is your own true nature. It is home." So I'm going to look at some of these books about the near-death experience. So the first one that I'm aware of is Dr. Raymond Moody in 75 wrote the book Life After Life about the near-death experience. And then it started a wave of others. Betty Eady wrote Embraced by the Light. She went on Art Bell's Coast to Coast radio show, and she said, quote, I was drawn in by this energy into what then appeared to be like a tunnel, and I was drawn into this dark space. It was totally black. It was so filled with love, so nurturing, and so beautiful that I actually felt that I would prefer this place to any other place I had ever experienced. And then I saw a pinpoint of light that pierced this blackness, and then I wanted to go to that light. It was my heart's desire to go to that light. And at that point, I swirled and began to travel towards that light, going feet first. This is when I noticed that I had a spiritual body, because I could see then that I had feet, and they were out in front of me, but they were of a different kind. Again, she comments about the darkness, quote, now, normally that would have really panicked me. It was the love that held me there, and the love that comforted me. It was the most beautiful place I'd ever been. It was the most wonderful that I'd ever been. I cannot overemphasize the beauty of that darkness. No pain. It was just beautiful. It was though my body and my spiritual self was going through a healing, a transformation, because everything of the earth dissolved away from me, and I was filled with this tremendous love, like being held. If you feel the comfort of your father's arms or whatever was your security, you could just imagine that and that comfort you feel, and then just intensify that by 1,000 times. I mean, it was so beautiful. But the beauty was yet to be experienced, and that was the beauty of following the light. After that light pierced the darkness, which began as a pinpoint of light, just a speck of light, enough to attract my attention. And I knew, Art, that anyone in this dark space with me, any one of us that we saw the light and we so desired, we could all turn and go towards that light. But I also knew there could be spiritual beings who would not be prepared to go there. They would not release what they had here in this comfort and in this beauty, that they would not follow the light. So she goes on and on telling us how awesome and beautiful the darkness is, but for some reason that we should go to the light.
There's also a recent book by a guy called Eben Alexander, a neurologist that had a near-death experience. Have you read that one?
No.
Yeah, that was just a few years ago. I think 4 or 5 years ago. He was a neurologist, and he was absolutely of the conventional scientific view that this world is all there is, and there's no such thing as a spiritual realm, no such thing as life after death. And he contracted an E. coli virus and infection, and it put him into a coma. And he was, to all intents and purposes, basically dead. He was just hanging on by a thread to his physical life. And in this book, he describes his experiences when he left his body and went into the spiritual realm. And I think there's an account there of going towards a brilliant white light. And then he talks about going into these different states of being and these different levels of spiritual experience. And it's a fascinating read, but it does tally with what so many other authors write about.
Daniel Brinkley seemed like had an experience very, very similar to that. And in his Saved by the Light, on page 19, he admits he was an assassin with the CIA, military intelligence. And so I'm thinking, what if writing books and going on tour promoting the light of the near-death experience was just his next CIA assignment? So, and you get one step closer, or further, you get into reincarnation. And there's this research from Michael Newton, who's a hypnotherapist, and he takes clients in between their lives through hypnosis, so he claims. And in his book, Journey of Souls, these different clients, one of them said, he said, some newly dead people see it opening up next to them right over their bodies, while others say they move high above the earth before they enter the tunnel. A subject under hypnosis described it, quote, at first it was very bright, close to the earth. Now it's a little darker because I've gone into a tunnel. It's a hollow, dim vent, and there's a small circle of light at the other end. I feel a tugging, a gentle pulling. I think I'm supposed to drift through the tunnel, and I do. It's more gray than dark now because of the bright circle expanding in front of me. It's as if I'm being summoned forward. I leave the circle and I'm out of the tunnel. Another subject said, I think something's pulling me to my proper level of travel and trying to relax me. I'm hearing sounds and echo of music tingling. The waves of musical notes are so beautiful here. Another one saw his dead Uncle Charlie with his hand stretched out to me to comfort me, to lead me further into the light. He is taking me to the place I should go. No, don't go. Uncle Charlie's leaving me. Why is he going away? He stays in a different place than I do. He just came to meet me, to bring me here. Another person said they are sending images into my mind, thoughts about themselves, and the shapes are changing into people. It's Larry. I'm being pulled along by a magnet, and I just enjoy the ride. I am riding on a wave, a beam of light. I must go with the wave bands of light. They do it all for you, the ones in control. I don't really know. I'm being pulled, and I'm supposed to go with it. Another subject mentioned the staging area reminded him of a hub of a great wagon wheel. Another related, I'm moving along in a chain of some kind. It's as if I'm weaving through a series of connecting links, a foggy maze, and then it opens up. After a while, I see nests of people like hives. I see them as bunches of moving lights, fireflies. Another soul talked about cones. Well, the cones do assist us. It's shaped to go around us, It's cylindrical, very bright. It's above and all around us. The cone is wide at the top and small at the bottom, so it fits all over all of us. And Dr. Newton says, I wonder if this cone is brainwashing your original thoughts. And goes, we aren't brainwashed. Another client reported some of us have to be given a push when they think we're ready again after some more indoctrination. Dr. Newton says, indoctrination, this makes me think of coercion. He's like, it's not that way at all. In his second book, Destiny of Souls, Dr. Newton reports on a subject who describes souls being in pods. And another subject claimed to be sort of a nurse in the spirit world who describes souls in honeycomb cells being incubated in an incubator before being born. So there you go. You have this notion of pods, like in the Matrix movie. There's so many movies that television shows that were Avatar's one of them, the Stargate television series. It just goes on and on with how many pods and all these products on the market that deal with pods.
Sorry. Any suggestions as to who or what the malevolent force that's controlling things might be then, and what their ultimate intention might be? Are we talking what many researchers would term archons or Anunnaki? Do you think they're all the same expressions for the same force?
And the archons is one that's interesting to me because it comes from the Gnostic texts, the ones that were not included in the Bible. And the researcher John Lash has talked a lot about it and probably popularized the term, and he's adamant that they are not our rulers. They're mind parasites. And they were featured in the pilot for the original Star Trek series called The Cage, and they later had an episode named Return of the Archons, and they looked like the little gray aliens They were short and had bulbous heads. They had these silver little costumes on, but they created illusions for the human mind. And I'll get into it later in the movie section. But the archons.
Sorry, do you think that's who we might be dealing with here then?
Yeah. The archons, and they are acontic or parasitic ticks. That's where we get the tick suffix in the words like plasmatic and magnetic and genetic. Yeah, politics, lunatic, plastic, cybernetic, neurotic, patriotic, narcotic, idiotic, politics, cybernetic, linguistic. There's just a bunch of them. And so I think the aliens are ticks. They feed off our energy. We're food of the gods, as so to say. So like you have these human beings that were placed on this plant in the Garden of Eden, and people is a pun for a pea pole. Peas are beans, and they do grow on a pea pole in pods. It's very interesting that so many of these programs do depict the humans living in pods and living a simulated life. And of course, there are all these game pods and iPods and podcasts. And as kids, we're said to be raised, much like crops are. And semen's often referred to as seed. And if someone is our ancestor, they are said to be from our seed. So why are we called a human? It's because we have different races or hues. According to the Dictionary of Ancient Deities, Hu, H-U, was an Egyptian stellar, quote, god of sense of taste and also the divine food on which gods and mortals feed. And he appears at the creation in the boat of the sun. Later, he appears at the judgment of the dead. So, I wonder what was on his menu. Every time a new fetus is created, they say, feed us. It's all dream theater. It's the theater for the eater. So we're placed on this planet Earth in a secret garden by a constant gardener. And the farmer rides on his reaper to sow the crops. We're all familiar with the grim reaper who's said to come to harvest your soul at death. So yeah, I do think they are the archons and whatever name you want to give to them, that they are somehow feeding off our energy like a source. And then I do believe the soul's getting lured to the moon and then eventually to the sun to be recycled.
I mean, hearing this is going to be a horrific thing for many people to take on board.
Yeah, but that's why you have to remember it's just a game. It's all games.
Well, it's all a game, and we're the co-creators of the reality that we experience, as so many researchers have pointed out. And this is also the basis of.
We're directing the movie. We're starring in the movie. We're
This is the basis of so many ancient religions, and this is what gurus and sages and shaman have understood throughout the ages. But what would you say is the solution then? If we understand that this is what might be happening to our souls after death, having figured this out, what are our options for doing anything about it?
Well, first of all, we have to educate other people, and you have to expose the problem first. And it's ugly to look at or whatnot, but it is just a game. And so I think if we could, change the language, or maybe we just shoot down the moon, whatever it is, we need to get people more aware, and maybe other people can have a better solution. But first of all, the obvious one is not to go to the light, if you die. And there's other. Do you think you would have control over that? That's a really good question, because we may be on our autopilot based on our subconscious. Everything's been programmed into us. So we're in some kind of spell-like trance, or like when you're asleep, you're hardly aware. But based on what Betty Eadie and some of these other near-death experiencers are, they claim to be pretty much aware of where they are and of their thoughts and stuff. And they emphasize that they do have a choice whether to go in, and they choose to do that. And so I guess you wouldn't have to choose to do that. But I think there would be a very convincing
what the alternative to going towards the light would be. Would you be in a state of limbo in sort of
You could be running around like a ghost, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, I've got some different solutions that I've outlined on the site, and one of them is to use resolve, or your willpower, or free will. Like, games are bound by their resolution, graphic resolution. So you could use free will as a resolution or resolve to win and resolve the puzzle. So or you can go inside of ourselves. If it's an upside down, inside out world, the way out is in. Space could be infinitely small inside of us as it is in outer space. You have a solution, SOL. So the sun may be a stargate. The sun is a star. Sunspots are said to have another sunspot on the exact opposite of the sun. So there's a lot of different solutions. You could go inside the Earth. If they tell us that heaven's up and hell is down, then maybe the opposite is true. So tunneling down inside the Earth could be considered traveling through a wormhole. There's a black hole at the center of the galaxy, the black center of the central sun, and this could be a white hole on the other side, and this could be like the yang to this yin, which would be positive. So you become whole by going through the hole. You've got Sirius. By the very name, it must be Sirius important, because it was to the ancient Egyptians, and one of the shafts in the Great Pyramid of Giza, Egypt, is aligned with Sirius, and the pharaohs were believed to travel there after their death to be with the gods. Dissolution or dissolution. This is a sort of spiritual death where you dissolve. You refuse to engage your mind or consciousness with anything, because it's all just projections of the mind, phantoms or illusions. You stop feeding the machine. If you want the game to stop, just stop playing the game. It could result in a nirvana. Like in the movie War Games, the only way to win is not to play the game. We are trapped in a prison here of duality, and emotions are harvested, so the only way to end the game is not to react to it or play the game. The archons who feed off our electronic energy, E, Einstein said E equals MC squared. E is energy. Even the dictionary says that you got email and electronic email, and so even the dictionary says that energy is E. So they feed off our E emotions, and it's a move E because our energy is moving. So emotions are just our energy, and if we seize that motion, they starve and the game dies. I mentioned the Tibetan Book of the Dead, where it says to go into the clear light, and I know other people said there's maybe a golden light. So you look at the light, there's like this white light that shows this tunnel, this trap. They say if you look around, there's like a gold light maybe. I don't know. Polaris is a company, and they're slogan is the way out, or the motto, the way out. So polar is the way out. You could just go perpendicular to this galactic plane that we're on. It's like a disk, and just haul ass out of here. And, because if we go to any new dimension, it's like a perpendicular 90-degree angle to the current dimension, right? So you could just go to the darkness, because pure light is dark. It can only be seen when reflected by an object, I guess. So this experience of life here on Earth is called existence or existence. So to end the existence, we go to the ends or extremities of the Earth, like in the Truman Show or The Prisoner, the 13th Floor, Dark City, For the World's Hollow and I've Touched the Sky was a Star Trek episode. These characters have traveled to the boundaries of the Earth, like Shell Beach, only to find there's just a wall there. Maybe we're being domed in, like on the Truman Show. I mean, you got the kingdom of a king, and you have the Lord means dominus. Maybe they're dominus. You have the television show that they've come out with Stephen King. What is it? Under the Dome. So I mean. As the song says, life is but a dream. So in that case, we need to wake up from the dream. And lucid dreaming is becoming aware during the dream that you're dreaming. So there's different, escape routes, or what you want to call them.
And the other song that's coming into my head is "Blinded by the Light" by Manfred
Oh my gosh!
written by Bruce
I've
Springsteen.
actually, in my music section, I have that. I was going to get to that, and I'll give you a couple other ones that are very telling. And I'm trying to get to it so I can read it. But
okay.
Yeah, the "Blinded by the Light." That's amazing synchronology that you had there.
Yeah, and you hear that on the radio all the time.
Yeah, it was written by Bruce Springsteen, and Manfred Mann made it a #1 song. And yeah, I'm really having a hard time finding it on here.
No worries.
Yeah.
Just while you're looking for that then, the implication is that if you leave aside the Archons or the Anunnaki or whatever you want to call these malevolent parasitic forces that are kind of having an effect on human existence, the fact that you have this kind of symbology encoded into music and movies means that there's a human input here as well. There are groups of humans who are in full knowledge of what's going on, and they're deliberately putting this stuff into music and movies so that it can be subliminally absorbed by the rest of us.
Yeah, and like Ozzy Osbourne said, I don't know if I'm a medium for some outside source. Whatever it is, frankly, I hope it's not what I think.
Exactly.
Satan. So you have these, the muse. The word music comes from the Greek muse, or fates who inspired men. And the artists that create music, they're very intuitive. And a lot of them claim that they're being possessed. They're not even aware of what they're doing when they're on stage. I think Santana made that claim. There's a lot of them. But so we chant these song lyrics or the hook over and over, and many tunes that become hits have a repetitive beat that is hypnotic, a catchy melody or hook, and lyrics with a fascinating rhyme to put us deeper in a trance. You have Katy Perry, Bob Dylan, all these stars that claim they sold their soul. And if you look at the award shows, there's a lot of cult and satanic, Super Bowl halftime performances by Lady Gaga, Madonna, and others. You have the entertainers displaying this all-seeing eye symbolism, or they hold up their hands in the shape of a triangle. And in my Wiccan encyclopedia, it calls that the triangle of manifestation. And a lot of songs mention sun and moon. A lot of the Beatles have like almost 10 songs that mention the sun. The Grateful Dead has almost 30 about the moon. There's other bands like Rainbow and the Cult, and they just get so deep into all these different songs about it. And Bob Dylan said, I made a bargain with it, a long time ago, and I'm holding up my end on 60 Minutes. He said that. Clear CCR, Bad Moon Rising says, I see the bad moon rising. I see trouble on the way. Don't go around tonight. It's bound to take your life. There's a bad moon on the rise. All right. Hope you got your things together. Hope you are quite prepared to die. So I believe rock and roll means to send us to the moon, the rock. You're getting rocked. And they roll us or turn us over and over again when we return. To get rolled is to be robbed, beaten, or mugged. So, Queen has this anthem, We Will Rock You. A chance, somebody better put you back into your place. Sing it. We will rock you. They sing it over and over again. AC/DC says, heads will roll and rock tonight. For those about to rock, we salute you. I mean, we're saluting somebody who's dying. I mean, they got a 21-gun salute in the song where they fire a cannon. And it says, we're just a battery for hire with a guitar fire ready and aimed at you. Pick up your balls and load up your cannon for a 21-gun salute. For those about to rock fire, we salute you. April Wine has a song where she's a roller, a high roller baby, and then they sing bye, 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 bye over and over. Florida Georgia Line with Luke Bryan had one song called This Is How We Roll. This is how we do. We're burning down the night, shooting bullets at the moon, baby. This is how we roll. Here we go. Blinded by the Light, written by Bruce Springsteen. #1 song for Manfred Mann's Earth Band. I wasn't going to go maybe necessarily, there's so many lyrics, but he says, with a boulder on my shoulder, feeling kind of order, I tripped the merry-go-round. With this unpleasant sneezing and wheezing, the calliope crashed to the ground. Some all-hot half-shot was heading for the hot spot, snapping his fingers and clapping his hands. Save the buckshot, turn up the band. The chorus goes, he was blinded by the light, revved up like a deuce. Deuce is a name for the devil. Another runner in the night, blinded by the light. Some brimstone, baritone, anticyclone, rolling stone preacher from the east says, dethrone the dictaphone, hit it in his funny bone. That's where they expect it least. Some new-mown chaperone was standing in the corner all watching the young girls dance, and some fresh-sown moonstone was messing with his frozen zone, reminding him of the feeling of romance. They repeat the chorus. Little Early Pearly came in by in her curly whirly and asked me if I needed a ride. Well, I jumped up, turned around, spit in the air, fell on the ground, and asked him which was the way back home. He said, take a right at the light, keep going straight until night. Reminds me of Peter Pan. And then you're on your own. Now, in Zanzibar, a shooting star was riding in a sidecar, humming a lunar tune. Yes, and the avatar said, blow the bar, but first remove the cookie jar. We're going to teach these boys to laugh too soon. And some kidnapped handicap was complaining he caught the clap from some mousetrap he bought last night. Well, I unsnapped his skull cap, and between his ears I saw a gap and figured he'd be all right. He was blinded by the light, cut loose like a deuce, another runner in the night. Mama always told me not to look into the sights of the sun, but oh, Mama, that's where the fun is. I was blinded. And they talk about make it through the night. So, and Stairway to Heaven and Hotel California, they're two of the biggest rock songs of all time. And they both contain many of the same elements. I found one's a lost or confused traveler that's on a path or a road. You have a lady shining a light to show the way, which could be heaven or hell, possibly. And then you have a wind, you have a spirit, and then you have a piper or voices calling. Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon seems to recap our lives as it starts with a heartbeat at the very beginning and Speak to Me, and which leads to the song Breathe, and it goes on to Time. And then the reprise of Breathe, they say, far away across the field, the tolling of the iron bell calls the faithful to the nearest to hear the softly spoken magic spells. And Great Gig of the Sky says, I'm not afraid of dying. And the whole album ends with Brain Damage. He says, I'll see you on the dark side of the moon. And then the eclipse. Everything under the sun is in tune, but the sun is eclipsed by the moon.
And just going back to Stairway to Heaven, I think it was Robert Plant that wrote that song. And he said that he didn't know where it came from. He just kind of pulled it out of the ether. He kind of channeled that song. It just came to him, and he says that he thinks it was like this timeless song that was just out there waiting for the right channel to be brought into reality, and he was the channel for it, which is a very interesting thing to say.
So it was like automatic writing, or he was kind of, his body was taken over and somebody else wrote the song for him.
That's right.
And it's a very interesting song when you look into the symbolism of the piper that wants to call you, and there's a white lady with a white light that's showing you the way, and it's
an amazing song, and it really draws you in. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I find it's a fascinating piece of music, and it's a wonderful song to listen to, even though there are probably quite sinister tones to it, particularly when you get into the whole idea of backmasking. And Stairway to Heaven is one of the most famous songs which is supposed to have subliminal messages encoded in it backwards. When you play the track backwards, there's a point where you hear the phrase, "Here's to my sweet Satan." And there are others as well. But there's something about it that just draws you in, I find.
Absolutely. And I've seen that in so many different other songs by other groups too, where they talk about a lady. It's very common to, like the song Lady by Styx. They could be saying Lady of the Morning, they'd be saying how great they are, but I mean, it may not even be singing about a woman. It could be there, because in witchcraft, or they call the goddess Lady. It's the Lord and the Lady, so, or is it The Goddess in the Doorway was an album by Mick Jagger, so, there's that aspect as well.
So just on the subject of how you might be able to break this cycle, or this recycle, going by your theory of what happens to souls after death, many authors and researchers in this field through the ages have put forward the view that reincarnation is all about your spirit soul gaining the experiences that it needs or it desires, and learning the lessons and learning the skills that it needs to ascend to higher levels of consciousness. And when you've completed that process, which probably takes several lifetimes, and you've learned all that you desire to learn, you can then break this karmic cycle and go off to another form of existence. And I wonder how you feel that ties into your theory of if a soul is tricked into going into the light through not understanding the true nature of what it is, are they then recycled, and that they have to bear the burden of coming back and living another human life and trying to get it right next time?
Well, that's the thing in reincarnation, which is basically recycling the soul, right? It's reincarceration. The problem with that is you don't remember your memories. And, if you're being punished, for something you did in a past life, or rewarded, we're not even aware of it. So how can you learn from your mistakes? If you have to look at who created all these different religions, okay? And I did that. I went on Google or Wikipedia, and I was reading about the different major religions, like Hinduism and Buddhism. And I found that, start with Hinduism because it's probably the earliest one, but I found that all the major religions were given to humanity by the princes of elite royal families or nobility. In Hinduism, the teachings of Hinduism were largely based on Lord Krishna, who was a prince, the eighth son born to the princess Devaki. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna convinces the hero Arjuna on the battlefield why fighting the war against his own family is just. And then Buddhism was given to us by Gautama Buddha. He was born in a royal Hindu family, and according to most traditional biography, the Buddha's father and mother were King Sadhananda and Queen Mahamaya. I'm not very good with pronouncing this stuff, but Buddha taught that suffering was part of life and that one should suppress desires. And then Judaism was given to us from Moses, their most important prophet, really the first 5 books of the Old Testament, the Torah, or Torah, which was said to be written by him in the 10 Commandments, which God supposedly gave him while on Mount Sinai. He was conveniently said to have been found in a reed basket in the Nile River by the princess daughter of the Pharaoh, and adopted by the Egyptian royal family and raised in the court of the Pharaoh. So Moses was treated as an Egyptian prince. He was raised as one. And then you have a DreamWorks picture, which made a famous animated movie based on that name, The Prince of Egypt. Muhammad, the founder of Islam, was the son of the most noble family in Arabia and married a wealthy businesswoman from a very prominent family in an elite tribe who was given the title Princess of Quraysh. And from the United Press International, on October 10th, 1986 article entitled Muslims in Buckingham Palace, it says, quote, mixed in with Queen Elizabeth's blue blood is the blood of the Muslim prophet Muhammad, according to Burke's Peerage, the genealogical guide to royalty. Brooks Baker said the British royal family is descended from Muhammad through the Arab kings of Seville who once ruled Spain. So you have, and Christianity was based on the life and teachings of Jesus, of course. Jesus was in the line of King David, and he was the source for the controversial books Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and the Da Vinci Code. And the kings and royal families, a lot of them claim that they're descended from Jesus. So we can also see how much power the royal family had in the creation of Christianity, and the very fact that Emperor Constantine officially made it the state religion, and he was just a bloody murderer. Also, you have King James commissioning the translation of the King James Bible. There's even 2 books in the Old Testament named Kings and Kings 2. So you can see the Christianity Bible is very much rooted in politics. And in fact, you had counselors which were to decide which books to include and exclude from the Bible, which is why a lot of those books about the archons and stuff were not included in the Bible. It's in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And so, if you have a small group of people with enormous wealth and power, and you want to control the masses and prevent them from revolting and taking all the golden power from them, and you want to placate them, then what's the best way? You promise them eternal life for being good and doing good works and playing on their fears by scaring them with an eternal hell if they don't behave. It's like, your parent and kids, go to your room if you don't behave, or reward you with a treat. So they're instructed to turn the other cheek and forgive others for their sins, or they'll be judged and they're told the meek shall inherit the earth. Jordan Maxwell pretty much, I'm not going to go into it. I was going to read a lot of what he said, but he's talked about how the sun was God's son and it's the light of the world and it was our savior because at nighttime it got dark and cold and the animals would come. But if you look at the movie or the documentary Zeitgeist, it's a lot of the section on religion is based on what Jordan Maxwell said in his documentary The Naked Truth, and so I'm not going to repeat it all here. But so yeah, reincarnation, it's the recycling of souls, and so you reincarnate over and over again to learn lessons. And once all the karma's been overcome, we graduate from this earthly plane. And but like I said, how can you be punished for something you don't remember? It just doesn't make any sense. And so why go to such extremes? I mean, there's ways, like you go to classes at university and, I don't know, it just seems like it's just too extreme when you have people dying and 100 people dying in an airplane crash or, a baby dying, childbirth or whatnot.
Exactly. It doesn't seem to make sense to us on a human level, but maybe the decision was made on another level with a greater plan in mind that we just don't understand.
Oh, that's very possible. But every time I read stuff like that, which I thought was the case with Journey of the Souls by Michael Newton, where he'd take people into their in-between life state and they would explain why they had to go through all the suffering. But, one of his clients, it said it took him like 450 years, or I can't remember, it was 800 years. It was just to conquer jealousy, It seems like it's just not necessary. Like if you have an all-knowing, all-powerful God, it seems like he would have a better way. I mean, look at what we have here on Earth, where it's all a predator-based food chain where creatures have to kill each other and eat each other just to survive. I mean, why not have it be more loving? Where you got plants that live off photosynthesis, from the light of the sun. And
this is something people rarely think about. Just every day in nature, all around the world. Just think of the death and suffering of creatures just to provide the food chain, as you say.
And we think we're at the top of the food chain, but
well, we like to think that. Yeah. If there was indeed a benevolent entity, which a lot of people like to call God, that set this reality into place, why did it have to be done with so much horrific suffering going on a daily basis?
Really
what's that all about? Why does there have to be?
And why can't we, talk to God? I mean, why is it so hard if you got to pray for years and years and years, and, just to speak to God? And even then you're lucky if you do, I guess. But I mean, here on Earth, you want to talk to your Father, you just basically pick up the phone, and most times he'll pick up and you can talk to him, but not with, our supposed Heavenly Father,
Well, yeah, it's all part of the puzzle of life that those of us that like to think muse upon daily, and it's all food for thought.
And so touching on that reincarnation cycle that I was talking about, and if we're going to the sun, you have this ray prefix, Re, and it comes from Ra or Re, the Egyptian sun god. You have solar rays, rays of sunshine. Ray-Ban sunglasses are very popular. So the subconscious mind has made the connection. So you have all these words that like redo, repeat, return, rerun, retry, react, reenact, reset, refresh, rehearse, reentry, reproduce, relive, rebirth, reborn, resurrection. Where was I going to go with this? I got so much stuff I wanted to cover. But so like in religion, during a revival, a reverend or a mini-star gives a sermon telling you you're born in sin and need to be saved from sin. Sin was like the Akkadian moon god. I think it was Akkadian. And he does a ceremony for the congregation and asks you to repent so you can be redeemed and reborn. So you give your heart and soul to the resurrected Son of God, Jesus. Then you sing Alleluia to the Almighty God or Mighty Owl God. You think of Bohemian Grove and they have this 40-foot stone statue of Now, right? Well, it's the Owl God. So you pray and you say Amen or Amen, like you were saying at the end of the prayer. And yeah, it was an Egyptian god of the moon, and he had a ram's head or a goat's head. Ah or Yah is one of the Egyptian moon gods. Jah was Yah in Hebrew, the Yahweh of the Bible. So, we constantly say see Yah later, or, we say see Yah as you depart. So you have to understand that not, N-O-T-T, and day are Norse gods of the night and day, which are governed by the moon and sun. So in the Lord's Prayer, we pray, lead us not into temptation. Well, are we talking about the God not, or are we, what I'm saying? There's a double meaning there. And you say, give us today our daily bread. Everything we've bred, it could be children or anything. So Napoleon said, religion is what keeps the poor man from murdering the rich.
Okay, well, we'll have to start to wrap up here, Wayne, but it's been fascinating stuff, and it's the sort of podcast that I think people need to go back to and listen 2 or 3 times. I certainly feel the need to do that myself. There's a lot of information there, and 2 or 3 goes at it will enable people to absorb it properly, I would suggest. But just remind people where they can go to find out more of your research online. Also, do you ever do any public talks on this stuff, and have you got any videos out there as well?
No, this is the first public thing I've ever done. And okay. So I was thinking about putting something up on YouTube, and I've kind of written a book that was fictional, but I didn't really do anything with it. I was going to do a screenplay that would do a lot of this, but no, this is the first thing, and I'm open to doing public talks, and it would be good to have video or images I could show instead of just trying to talk everybody through it. But if you go to www.trickedbythelight.com, and that's my website, and I get into so much more than what I've even mentioned here on this show. And there's some stuff I wasn't able to get to, like all the movie examples, which are more and more convincing, like, you have Star Trek. I know that on Art Bell's show, Leonard Nimoy was on, and he told Art that midway through the first season, he said that some people came to him and told him that they were going to use his character to introduce the public to this other, I guess, I wish I had the quote from there because I hate to put words in people's mouths, but he was basically alluding to the fact that they were going to use his character to educate the populace about this aliens that are out there and they're going to come here in the future. So I thought that was pretty telling.
Okay. All right then, Wayne, thanks for spending time with us today, and thanks for sharing your views and your findings.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Vibrations, I'm picking up. Vibrations, I'm picking up.